Fall 2019. I was 19 and halfway through my sophomore year at a small university in western Pennsylvania. I lived on the fourth floor of an old brick dorm called Hawthorne Hall, a building that had probably looked exactly the same since the late 70s. My roommate had transferred after the first month, so for most of October I had the room to myself. People always say having a dorm room to yourself sounds amazing. For about 2 weeks it really was. The room wasn't big. 2 narrow beds, 2 desks, 2 wardrobes bolted against opposite walls, and 1 window overlooking the employee parking lot. Every morning around 6:15, I'd wake up because the campus grounds crew drove little orange utility carts beneath the window. At night, the sodium parking lot lights turned everything outside a dull yellow. Nothing about it felt creepy. It just felt old. Most evenings I stayed in after class, worked on assignments, watched YouTube, and occasionally wandered downstairs to the vending machines around midnight. The building had hundreds of students, but after 11 the hallways usually became quiet enough that you could hear every door open and close. Our resident assistant was named Derek. Everyone liked him because he actually answered texts instead of ignoring people like most RAs supposedly did. During move-in week, he told everyone one rule. If you ever hear maintenance working after midnight, text me. Someone laughed. Maintenance doesn't work that late. Derek shrugged. They're not supposed to. Nobody thought much about it. Neither did I. Around the second week of October, I started noticing tiny things that didn't make sense. Nothing dramatic. I'd leave my desk chair tucked in before class, then come back and it'd be angled toward the window. I blamed myself. One afternoon, my phone charger disappeared. 3 days later, it showed up neatly coiled inside the empty desk drawer I never used. I figured I'd forgotten putting it there. When I mentioned it to my friend Maya over dinner, she laughed. Dude, you live alone now. You're gaslighting yourself. She wasn't wrong. Living by yourself changes how you remember things. At least that's what I kept telling myself. A few nights later, I woke up around 2:40 because somebody rolled a cart down the hallway. Metal wheels. Slow. Then silence. I checked the peephole. Nobody. The hallway lights were on exactly like always. The next morning, I texted Derek. Was maintenance here last night? He answered almost immediately. No. Why? I heard a cart. Probably someone moving laundry. That explanation made enough sense that I stopped thinking about it. For a while. Then my closet door started being open every morning. Not wide. Just a few inches. The annoying part was I knew I closed it every night because the old hinges squeaked unless you shut it firmly. I actually tested myself. One evening I recorded a video before going to bed. It showed me pushing the closet closed until it clicked. When I woke up, it was open again. Barely. Just enough to notice. I watched the recording 3 different times trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. I hadn't. Still, I felt ridiculous bringing it up. What was I supposed to tell people? My closet keeps opening. Nobody was going to take that seriously. Halloween was getting close, so the entire dorm was decorating their doors. Someone hung fake cobwebs across the lounge. Another guy put one of those giant plastic skeletons in the stairwell. The whole building felt noisy again. Normal. That weekend Maya came over to watch movies. Halfway through the second one, she looked at my desk. Who's that? I looked over. What? The girl. There was no girl. She frowned. I thought someone was sitting there when I walked past. She laughed it off before I could answer. So, guess I'm tired. We kept watching. I forgot about it. Until she left. After closing the door, I noticed the chair at my desk. It wasn't facing the computer anymore. It was turned toward my bed. I hadn't touched it. I told myself that had to be it. A week later, campus facilities emailed everyone saying maintenance crews would begin. Every room would receive notice beforehand. Our floor wasn't scheduled until November. So when I heard a key slide into my lock on October 28th, I assumed they were early. Then I looked at my phone. 11:47 p.m. Then I saw the handle move. The handle stopped moving. Whoever was outside didn't knock. They just held the handle down for a few seconds. Then it let go. I sat on the edge of my bed without making a sound. The room was completely dark except for the charging light on my laptop and the orange glow leaking through the blinds from the parking lot. I stared at the door. Nothing happened. After another minute, I walked over as quietly as I could and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. No maintenance cart. No student. Nothing. I waited another 5 minutes before texting Derek. Someone just tried to unlock my room. He replied almost immediately. Stay inside. I'm coming up. Less than 3 minutes later, he knocked twice. Derek. I opened the door. He looked down both directions of the hallway before stepping inside. You sure someone used a key? I'm positive. He checked the lock. No scratches. No damage. We walked the entire 4th floor together. Every lounge. Every stairwell. Every vending area. Nobody. He eventually sighed. If someone was messing with you, they're gone now. Before leaving, he stopped. If anything weird happens again, don't wait. Call me. Not text. Call. That was the first time I realized he sounded nervous. The next morning I went to class like normal. I almost stayed home. Instead, I convinced myself I was overreacting. People lose track of time. Maybe maintenance had the wrong room. Maybe someone had the wrong key. Maybe. When I got back around for that afternoon, my room looked exactly the way I'd left it. Except for one thing. A yellow sticky note sat perfectly centered on my desk. Said only 4 words. You missed me today. No signature. Nothing else. I stood there for almost a full minute. Then I called Derek. He was upstairs before I even finished explaining. You didn't leave this? He shook his head immediately. Campus police arrived about 15 minutes later. They photographed the note. Asked if anyone had access. Asked if I'd been threatened. Asked if I had any problems with another student. The answer was no. Every question ended the same way. No. One of the officers finally asked, could one of your friends be playing a prank? Maya actually laughed. No. The officer smiled politely. College students do dumb things. That was apparently the end of their investigation. That night I couldn't sleep. Around 1:30, I decided to move my desk chair against the door. Not because I thought it'd stop anyone. Just because I'd hear it move. I left my phone recording on the desk. Then I climbed into bed. I don't remember falling asleep. I remember waking up. The chair wasn't against the door anymore. It was beside my bed, facing me. I grabbed my phone so fast I almost dropped it. The recording lasted almost 6 hours. Nothing. No interruption. No sound. At 3:18 a.m., though, something happened. The camera didn't move. The room didn't change. But the closet door, very slowly, opened. No one came out. Nothing entered the frame. It simply opened. Then stayed there. I watched that 30-second clip at least 20 times. I couldn't explain it. Neither could Derek. Campus police reviewed the footage. One officer actually smiled. Old buildings settle. I looked at him. My chair moved across the room. He paused. Did the camera catch that? No. So we can't say it happened. That was it. I realized nobody was going to help unless something undeniable happened. Maya convinced me to stay at her dorm for 2 nights. When I came back, my room was exactly how I'd left it. I felt ridiculous for leaving. Maybe getting away had helped. Maybe I really had been stressing myself out. I unpacked my backpack, sat down, opened my laptop. That's when I noticed the notebook. It wasn't mine. Black cover. No label. No name. Inside were pages. Dozens of them. Every page contained dates. Times. Tiny handwritten notes. Leaves 8:07. Returns with coffee. Blue hoodie. Phone call with mother. Window open. Moves chair. Falls asleep after one. The entries stretched back nearly 3 weeks. Some described conversations I'd had inside my room. Some mentioned things that happened with the blinds closed. One page simply read, "Knows about Derek now." My stomach dropped. I slammed the notebook shut. Campus police finally took everything seriously. The notebook. The sticky note. My phone recording. Maintenance records. Key logs. They discovered something strange. No master key had officially accessed my room after move-in. At least according to the electronic records. That should have been reassuring. Instead, it meant whoever entered wasn't using a logged key. They changed my lock. Moved me temporarily into another building. Interviewed maintenance staff. Nothing. Nobody knew anything. No fingerprints besides mine and the officers. No usable security footage. One hallway camera had gone offline the same week all of this started. No explanation. Winter break arrived. Students left. The investigation quietly disappeared. A month later Derek called me. "You hear what happened?" "What?" "They found another notebook." My chest tightened. "Where?" "Empty room. Same floor. Different hallway." The room had been vacant since August. The notebook contained observations. Different handwriting. Different student. Same format. Dates. Times. Daily routines. The last entry said, "Moved home." Nothing after that. I transferred schools before the next fall semester. Officially, it was because I changed majors. That's what everyone thinks. I never told my parents the full story. Even Maya only knows part of it. A few years ago, I searched Hawthorne Hall online. The building had been renovated. New locks. New cameras. Fresh paint. Everything looked brighter. Safer. I almost convinced myself I'd finally let it go. Then someone uploaded photos from inside the renovated 4th floor. In one picture taken down the hallway, every dorm room door was closed. Except one. Mine. It was open just a few inches. Exactly the way my closet used to be. I still wonder the same thing whenever I think about that building. If someone had been watching me that closely, how many other notebooks were there that nobody ever found? Spring 2022. I was 20 years old and finishing my sophomore year at a university in downtown Chicago. I lived on the 12th floor of a newer residence hall that overlooked the river, and I worked 10 hours a week at the front desk of the same building. I thought knowing everyone in the dorm would make me feel safer. It actually did. First, our building wasn't like the old brick dorms you see in movies. Everything needed a key card. The elevators required you to scan before they moved. Every hallway had bright LED lights that never seemed to turn off, and every floor had security cameras pointing toward the elevators. It felt impossible for someone to wander around unnoticed. My RA was a guy named Ethan. He was 22, always wore a gray university hoodie, and somehow knew everyone's name by the second week of the semester. He had one habit everyone joked about. Whenever he did room checks, he'd knock exactly 3 times. Not 2. Not 4. 3 evenly spaced knocks. Then he'd say, "Alright, just checking in." Every time. It became one of those little things people imitated. If someone forgot their laundry downstairs, another person would knock 3 times and do an impression of Ethan before handing it back. It was stupid, but everyone recognized it instantly. One Friday night in March, Ethan mentioned something during our floor meeting. "If anyone knocks after quiet hours and doesn't identify themselves," he shrugged. "Don't open the door." Someone laughed. "What if it's you?" "I'll text first." That sounded reasonable. Nobody questioned it. Most nights I worked the front desk until midnight. The lobby was usually quiet after 10. People came back from the library, ordered food, complained about midterms. The overnight security guard, Carlos, mostly watched baseball highlights on his phone between rounds. Nothing exciting ever happened. Around the middle of March, a freshman named Lily came downstairs looking embarrassed. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Did Ethan stop by my room tonight?" "I don't think so." "He knocked." "Did you answer?" "No." "What happened?" "He said he was doing a room inspection." I frowned. "At 11? She nodded. I looked through the peephole. And he wasn't there. Carlos overheard us. Maybe he walked away. Maybe. Lily accepted that answer. So did I. The next afternoon I saw Ethan in the elevator. "You doing room inspections late now?" He looked confused. "No." I told him what Lily had said. He laughed. "People hear things all the time around midterms." That was the end of it. At least for a week. The knocks started spreading. Room 1208. Then 1214. Then the girls' side of the hallway. Always after midnight. Always 3 knocks. Always the exact same sentence. "Alright, just checking in." Nobody ever opened the door. Nobody ever saw anyone outside. People started blaming TikTok prank videos. Someone claimed another dorm across campus had the same problem. Campus security couldn't find anything. The hallway cameras showed empty corridors. Every single time. Eventually people stopped talking about it. College students get used to weird things surprisingly fast. I wasn't worried. Until it happened to me. 3 knocks. Evenly spaced. I looked at my phone. 12:43 a.m. Then I heard Ethan's voice. "Alright, just checking in." I smiled. "Hold on." Before unlocking the door, I glanced through the peephole. The hallway was empty. I froze. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ethan. "Still helping with a noise complaint on floor 5. Be back upstairs in 20. I stared at the message. Then I heard the voice again. Closer this time. "Open up." It sounded exactly like Ethan. Exactly. Not almost. Not similar. Exactly. I didn't answer. For nearly 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then, the doorknob turned. The handle stopped. It didn't rattle. It didn't shake. Whoever was outside simply held it down for a few seconds before letting it return to its normal position. I stayed completely still. My room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioner. Then my phone rang. It was Ethan. I answered immediately. "Don't open your door," he said before I could speak. "I wasn't planning to." "You heard it." "Yeah." There was a pause. "You too." That wasn't what I expected him to say. "What do you mean, me too?" "I've had 3 people call me tonight. Same thing." He sounded out of breath. "I'm coming upstairs." He showed up about 10 minutes later with Carlos, the overnight security guard. Ethan knocked 3 times. Then he laughed awkwardly. "See? That's me." I opened the door. The hallway was empty. Carlos checked both stairwells. Nothing. He reviewed the hallway camera on his tablet. The recording showed my door. No one approached it. No one stood outside. At 12:43, my doorknob moved. By itself. There was nobody in the frame. Carlos stared at the screen. "I don't know what to tell you." The maintenance department blamed a faulty latch. The camera footage was blamed on compression artifacts. Neither explanation made sense. Over the next week, more students reported the same thing. The details never changed. 3 knocks. Ethan's voice. An empty hallway. Campus housing sent out an email reminding everyone not to open their doors for unidentified visitors. That should have helped. Instead, people became more anxious. Every little noise in the hallway made someone check their peephole. One Thursday night, I was covering an extra shift at the front desk. Around 1:15 a.m., a student rushed into the lobby. "I need Ethan." "What's wrong?" "He just told me to come downstairs." I blinked. "What?" "He knocked on my door and said there was a water leak." "When?" "Like 2 minutes ago." I picked up the desk phone and called Ethan. He answered on the second ring. "I'm in my apartment across campus." I looked at the student. "He says he's not here." The student's face lost all color. "I talked to him." "No," Ethan said through the phone. "You heard someone who sounded like me." Housing management finally decided to review access logs. Every door swipe, every elevator scan, every camera. Nothing unusual. No unauthorized entries. No missing master keys. No unidentified visitors. Officially, there was no one in the building during any of the reported incidents. That explanation satisfied the administration. It didn't satisfy the students. The following weekend, Ethan asked me for a favor. "I want to test something." Around midnight, we stood in the hallway outside room 1216. His idea was simple. If the knocking happened again, we'd already be there. We waited. Nothing. An hour passed. Still nothing. At 1:38 a.m., Ethan sighed. "I guess it's over." Then 3 knocks echoed down the hallway. Not from our end. From the opposite side. Room 1203. Both of us heard it. So did 3 students who opened their doors. The voice followed. "Alright, just checking in." It was Ethan's voice. Standing right beside me. Everyone looked at him. He hadn't spoken. No one was anywhere near room 1203. The hallway was completely empty. Students started moving into friends' rooms. Some slept in study lounges. Others went home early on weekends. Nobody wanted to be alone after midnight. The administration quietly hired an outside security company to patrol overnight. For 2 weeks, the report stopped. Everyone relaxed. Then one of the contract guards quit. He never gave a public reason. Carlos told me privately that the guard refused to return after hearing someone call his name from an empty hallway. Final exams arrived. People were packing boxes. The building finally felt normal again. I figured whatever had been happening was over. My last night in the dorm was quiet. I loaded my car, returned my room key, said goodbye to Ethan. As I walked through the lobby doors, he waved. "Drive safe." "You too." That was the last time I saw him in person. 2 months later, I got a message from Lily. "Did you hear about Ethan?" "No." "What happened?" "He resigned." "Why?" "No one knows. Apparently, he left without finishing the summer session. No goodbye email. No explanation. Just gone." Housing assigned a new RA before fall move-in. The university never mentioned him again. I graduated 2 years later. Sometimes I still think about that semester. Not because of the knocking. Not even because of the voice. It's because of something Carlos told me after I moved out. He admitted there had been one piece of camera footage he never showed anyone. During one of the incidents, the hallway camera briefly caught a shadow stopping outside my door. It wasn't clear enough to identify a person, but the audio recorded 3 knocks. Then my name. Spoken in Ethan's voice. The strange part wasn't the voice. It was that the camera's microphone was mounted nearly 40 feet away. Whoever or whatever made that sound should have been visible. The hallway stayed empty from beginning to end. Carlos retired the following year. He refused to talk about the building again. As far as I know, students still live on that floor. They probably think it's just another modern dorm with secure doors, keycard elevators, and cameras everywhere. I hope they're right. But if someone knocks exactly 3 times after midnight, I'd wait for a text before even walking to the door. Summer 2021. I was 21 and staying on campus because I had an internship that paid just enough to cover rent and groceries. Most students had gone home, so the university consolidated everyone who remained into a single residence hall. Out of 12 floors, only the 6th and 7th were occupied. The rest of the building was officially closed for renovations. That sounded like a good thing. It meant the dorm was almost empty. Our floor had maybe 30 students total. You started recognizing everyone after the first week. There was Noah, a film major who always carried an old Sony camcorder. Emma worked nights at a hospital and usually got home around 3 a.m. Marcus practically lived in the study lounge playing online games. Because there were so few of us, we'd often leave our doors open while studying. Someone would make coffee, someone else would order pizza, and by midnight there'd be 6 or 7 people hanging out in the hallway. It felt more like an apartment building than a college dorm. The renovation crews worked weekdays from 8 a.m. until about 5 p.m. At least, that's what we were told. One afternoon, I asked a construction worker if the upper floors looked completely different now. He smiled. "You don't want to go up there." "Why?" "Nothing interesting." Then he walked away before I could ask anything else. It was an odd response, but I figured he just didn't want students wandering into an active construction site. About 2 weeks later, Noah mentioned something while we were eating takeout in the lounge. "You guys hear someone moving furniture upstairs every night?" Marcus laughed. "They're renovating." "At 2 in the morning?" Emma looked up. "I hear it too." We all shrugged. Construction sites make weird noises. Metal expands. Pipes shift. Elevators hum. It wasn't worth worrying about. The first genuinely strange thing happened on a Tuesday. I got off the elevator around 10:30 p.m. and noticed a folding chair sitting in the middle of the hallway. Just one chair. Facing the elevator. No one was sitting in it. I figured somebody had dragged it out while cleaning. When I came back from brushing my teeth 20 minutes later, the chair was gone. Nobody mentioned it. The next evening it was back. Same place. Same direction. Facing the elevator. Noah walked over and moved it against the wall. There. Problem solved. The following morning, it was back in the middle of the hallway again. Exactly where it had been before. Marcus blamed another student trying to be funny. That explanation worked for everyone. For a while. Friday night, Emma came knocking on my door. "You awake?" "Yeah." "You hear that?" First I didn't. Then, a loud bang. Somewhere above us. Another. Then something heavy scraping across concrete. It sounded like someone dragging a large cabinet across an empty room. I checked my phone. 2:17 a.m. "They're working?" Emma frowned. "They're not supposed to be." The noise stopped. Just like that. The next morning we asked one of the renovation supervisors. He looked confused. "No crews are allowed inside after 6. "So who was upstairs?" "There wasn't anyone upstairs." He sounded certain. We accepted the answer because there wasn't much else to do. After all, who argues with the people running the renovation? 3 nights later, Noah asked if anyone wanted to help him film some creepy empty hallway shots for a class project. He loved making short films. I agreed. Around midnight, we walked around the 6th floor with his camcorder. Empty lounge. Empty laundry room. Empty elevator lobby. Nothing unusual. As we packed up, Noah frowned at his camera screen. "Did you move that?" "What?" "The chair." I looked behind us. The folding chair was sitting in the middle of the hallway again. Neither of us had heard it move. Neither of us had seen anyone there. Noah laughed nervously. "Okay. That's weird." He picked it up. Carried it into the lounge. Closed the lounge door. We went back to my room. The next morning, the chair was back. Facing the elevator. Exactly where we'd found it. By that point, the chair had become a running joke. Someone taped a piece of paper to it that read, "Reserved." It stayed there all afternoon. By dinner, the paper was gone. The chair wasn't. It was still in the middle of the hallway, still facing the elevator. No one admitted moving it. The following weekend, Noah finally reviewed all the footage he'd been collecting for his class. He knocked on my door around 9 that night. "You need to see something." We plugged his camcorder into my TV. Most of the clips were exactly what you'd expect. Empty hallways, flickering vending machines, the quiet lounge, sunlight through dusty windows. Then we reached the clip from 3 nights earlier. The one where we'd carried the folding chair into the lounge. On camera, we both picked it up. We walked inside. We left. The lounge door swung shut behind us. About 10 seconds later, the door opened. Neither of us came out. The chair slowly slid into the hallway. No hands. No person. It stopped in the exact center of the corridor, facing the elevator. The lounge door closed again. Noah paused the video. "I didn't edit this. I know." I was holding the camera. Neither of us had an explanation. We showed the footage to Marcus and Emma. For a long time, nobody said anything. Marcus finally broke the silence. "We should show housing." We did. The residence manager watched the clip twice. Then she sighed. "It's probably a video glitch." Noah frowned. "A glitch moved a chair? I can't verify what happened before the recording." In other words, there wasn't enough proof. That night, 4 of us stayed together in the study lounge. Nobody wanted to be alone. Around 1:50 a.m., we heard the elevator arrive. The doors opened. No one stepped out. The doors closed. 30 seconds later, they opened again. Still nobody. Emma whispered, "Did someone call it?" Nobody answered. Then we heard it. A chair scraping across the floor. Not upstairs. Not downstairs. Our hallway. Slow. Steady. Closer. Marcus opened the lounge door. The hallway was empty, except for the folding chair. It was moving. Not fast. Just sliding. It traveled another few feet, then stopped. Every one of us saw it. Nobody spoke. Nobody laughed. Noah was already filming. The camcorder caught all of us standing there. It also caught the chair, moving. On its own. Housing finally contacted campus police. 2 officers arrived just after 3 in the morning. We explained everything. Showed them the footage. One officer rolled the chair over. Checked the wheels. There weren't any. It was an old metal folding chair with rubber feet. He looked around. "Air conditioning?" Marcus stared at him. "You think the air conditioning pushed that?" The officers searched every floor that was supposed to be empty. Nothing. Every locked renovation area was still locked. No broken windows. No signs of anyone living upstairs. By sunrise, they left. Officially, nothing had happened. The next afternoon, the construction supervisor looked irritated. "We're removing that chair." "Good." He loaded it into the back of a maintenance truck. We watched him drive away. For the first time in weeks, the hallway looked normal. That night, the chair was back. Same place. Facing the elevator. It wasn't just similar. It had the same dent in the backrest. The same faded inventory sticker. The same strip of gray duct tape wrapped around one leg. Noah quietly said, "That's impossible." No one disagreed. Word spread through the remaining summer residents. People from the 7th floor came down to look. A few thought it was funny, until they stayed long enough. Around midnight, nearly a dozen students were standing in the hallway talking about it. Someone suggested moving the chair again. Nobody volunteered. Then, without warning, the elevator chimed. The doors opened. Empty. The chair tipped forward onto 2 legs, balanced there for a second. dropped back onto all four. No one touched it. Every person in that hallway saw the same thing. No cameras failed. No tricks. Just 12 silent witnesses. For me, that was somehow worse than being alone. There was no comforting explanation left. The university closed the 6th floor 2 days early. They blamed unexpected maintenance. Everyone remaining was moved to another residence hall across campus. The renovations continued through August. When the building reopened for the fall semester, everything had been remodeled. New flooring. New lighting. New furniture. I went back once to meet a friend who had been assigned a room there. The hallway looked completely different. Brighter. Cleaner. The spot where the chair always sat was empty. I almost convinced myself the whole summer had become one exaggerated college story. Then my friend pointed toward the elevator. "What's with that chair?" At the far end of the hallway sat a single metal folding chair, facing the elevator. It wasn't the same one. At least, I don't think it was. Before I could walk over, another student picked it up and carried it into a nearby common room. I didn't stay long enough to see what happened next. I haven't been back since. Sometimes I still think about that nearly empty dorm and how every official explanation fell apart the moment multiple people saw the same thing at the same time. If it had only happened to me, I would have blamed stress. If there had only been one video, I would have blamed editing. But there were 12 of us standing in that hallway. Every one of us watched that chair move. And every one of us left before the summer was over. To this day, I still wonder why it always faced the elevator. Like it was waiting for someone, or making sure they never arrived alone.